My name is John Cipher. I spent 28 years in the CIA from 1986 to 2014. And yes, it is true that the CIA did conduct mind control experiments on people.
And in case you don't believe it, you can go to the National Archives in Washington, D.C.
There's the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence.
And you can find the declassified documents there, detailing the CIA's mind control program called MK-Ultra.
Central Intelligence Agency and human radiation experiments.
I can't believe the CIA and American presidents supported something like this.
And what they did was more brutal than you could ever imagine.
What we learned in the 40s and the 50s and the early 60s was that the Soviets had lots of spies in the United States. People in the White House, they had people in the Treasury Department.
When the CIA was first founded, we were scared.
When this came out after the war, we were like, oh my goodness, how is this happening?
We thought the Nazis had gotten ahead of us a bit in World War II, and now we were scared the Soviets were.
And so there was a view in the United States that these communist countries may have been dabbling with issues related to mind control and psychotropic drugs. And so we felt we were behind. There was a fear that perhaps the communists were onto something. And if you can control people's minds, there's a concern that you could actually control them or win a war. It says here in the testimony that 86 universities or institutions were involved.
UCLA, Harvard, Cornell, Princeton, the University of Maryland, the University of Wisconsin. These are all places you've heard of, and they all participated. But what were they to do? I mean, the presidents of the United States during this period fully supported it.
Was President Truman aware of MK-Ultra beginning?
At that time, the early CIA essentially was a plaything of presidents.
And have you ever met a president?
Yeah, I met Nixon, George Bush, the first George Bush, met Clinton, I met Obama, met Biden.
And was this while you were in the CIA?
Yeah.
So John clearly knows what he's talking about. What I want to know is 4 things.
Why did this program start?
We thought we had to fight fire with fire.
Is mind control actually possible?
There was some evidence.
Why were people okay with doing this to people?
Things were different back then.
And most importantly, is this still happening today?
President Truman early on went to CIA Director Allen Dulles and told him to start experiments on mind control and these other things.
You may recognize that last name if you've ever been to Washington, D.C., as it's the same family that the airport is now named after.
When the CIA said, okay, we want to try this for ourselves, was there any initial moral debate, or was it pretty cut and dry?
My sense is at the time it was cut and dry. People were really afraid that Stalin had the atomic bomb, and that often happens, frankly, in our national security spaces. When Americans are afraid, we ask our services to do things that we wouldn't ask them to do when we're not afraid. If you recall, it was a time of McCarthyism. There was a lot of red baiting and concern about communism in the United States. People at the time thought that communism was such a crazy idea that if anybody supported it, it must be something, wrong with your brain, or maybe you were drugged.
So there were a lot of goals developing around what we could do with a program like MK-Ultra. We could find drugs that would work like a truth serum to get enemies to admit things and potentially forget they ever did. We could potentially control people to do things against their will, and maybe we could teach them to read minds or even move things just by thinking, like we see in Stranger Things. And I think all the fear and desperation honestly answer our first question about why the program started. But was mind control actually possible?
We'll just get into the peak of experiments then.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. This is Editor Jack here. Just wanted to jump in and say, please subscribe, because if you subscribe right now, your name will literally be sent into space. I'm being completely serious. I'll explain how next year when we get back to more videos. I can't wait to show you guys what we've been working on, but just subscribe and your channel name will be sent to space. Okay, back to the video.
So we've got LSD experiments, and that was a cornerstone of MK-Ultra. Why did the CIA believe it held such promise for mind control, and were they ever close to success?
This was actually, inside the CIA, was very controversial programs. There was some evidence that people that took LSD might say something one evening, and then the next day, when the high, or whatever you call it, was over, they'd forgotten everything. They didn't know that they had said anything.
There's a lot of misinformation out there from pop culture about MK-Ultra and each of the experiments they tried on people. So to make things as easy as possible to understand, we decided to have John react to some movie clips featuring parts from MK-Ultra and tell us if that was an accurate depiction or not.
In this scene, the main character is under a truth serum. Is this actually possible?
I'm going to kill you pretty soon.
I see. How exactly?
First, I'm going to use you as a human shield. Then I'm going to kill this guard over there with the Patterson trocar on the table.
It's a regular thing in movies. You know, there's probably still a lot of people who think, oh, there must be some way. You know, all these great scientists have found to get people to either tell the truth or forget what they've said. And so this was an era where people were actually testing those things. And in the process, I think we look back and think it's a little bit crazy and a little bit unethical. But at the time, again, we were afraid, and we thought that, you know, we better explore these things to either protect ourselves or use to our advantage.
So although obviously drugs will alter the mind, an actual truth serum wasn't possible. But much worse and scarier things were tried, like building a Manchurian candidate, like we thought the Russians were doing.
If you recall, there was a very popular movie later on in the early 60s called The Manchurian Candidate. And it was about using mind control or drugs to brainwash someone into doing something for you, to psychologically preparing them so that you can have them do what you want. And you might be able to give them a code word or turn them on and turn them off in some sense for you. It's almost like a secret weapon that could work in the other side. That became a real concern amongst people and actually even in popular culture.
Little, of course, did the viewers of the Manchurian Candidate movie know that the scenes they were watching play out happened to be occurring naturally at universities across the country, secretly being conducted by the CIA.
MKUltra also explored the idea of remote viewing. That is, the idea of being able to see something going on somewhere else.
Here's a demonstration of this. Imagine I took a fully mixed Rubik's Cube and gave it to a friend, and that he went in a fully different room.
This next part is sponsored by Rubik's Connected X.
And I was just able to tell how he was solving it. Like right now, I think he's turning the top side, he's turning the left side, he's turning the top side, he's turning the left side, he's turning the top side, he's turning the left side, and no, there's not a mirror off camera. I'm seriously just remote viewing. Just kidding. I have this app that literally is tracking every single move he makes. Like, Brandon now actually solved the cube, and this app is tracking every single move. Look at this. And he just solved it. Boom. Because truthfully, I actually just have a special Rubik's Cube that does this. It's called the Rubik's Connected X, and it's actually the sponsor of this video. Let me tell you more about it. This is the easiest way to learn to solve a Rubik's Cube. My roommate Brandon is already an expert, obviously.
I've been doing Rubik's Cubes for the last, 10 years of my life, and I've never seen a cube like this. Like, it's buttery smooth.
But anyone with this app could learn to solve a Rubik's Cube really quickly and way easier than just using paper instructions. Look how it's got my exact formation, see? Literally anybody with this app can learn to solve a Rubik's Cube. It's literally impossible not to figure it out with this app, because if you do anything wrong, the app will tell you exactly what you did wrong. There's literally no reason you shouldn't buy this one. This app is amazing. Everyone should download it. The link is in the description. If you want to learn to solve a Rubik's Cube, this is by far the easiest way. Period. Back to the video.
So once again, I decided to show John a pop culture depiction of this to see if it was accurate.
Появились слухи, что американские власти вычислили нескольких наших шпионов на американской земле. Свяжись с Евгением, Сергеем и Анатолием. Мне нужно знать, откуда пошли эти слухи.
What was going on?
Can you speak Russian?
I can. I got most of that, but not all of it. So
But you could see how if they thought that that was possible, that would have been a pretty cool opportunity.
I can imagine, yeah, they were exploring all kinds of crazy things.
As if trying this in itself wasn't scary enough, ethics went even further down the drain when CIA members began poisoning each other.
Frank Olson was a US Army biochemist and biological weapons researcher. The story goes in November of 1953, Olson was covertly administered LSD by CIA colleagues without his knowledge. Subsequently, he experienced severe psychological distress, and on November 28th, 1953, Olson fell to his death from a hotel window in New York City. He's the one sort of documented death in relation to MKUltra. Why was he being drugged if he worked in the CIA?
You got me. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it sounds like a horrific mistake. I have no idea why they would do that.
It's an insane story. And sometimes the CIA tried things that seemed completely impossible because they were just so motivated to do anything to destroy the Soviets.
Uh-oh, that guy looks like me a little bit. So stuff like this, I'm probably more skeptical and more sort of laugh at the notion that, yeah, we could crush a Coke can with our brains or something. Unless I see you smash a Coke can with your brain, I don't buy it.
So ultimately, through all the chaos of MKUltra, it was never found that any form of mind control was worth pursuing for the CIA. It didn't work.
MKUltra was obviously a failure. And I think they learned pretty quickly that, you can destroy someone's mind, but you can't rebuild it.
That leads us to our third question. Why were people even okay with doing this to other people?
Well, I think when people find out that, there's been a spy in our midst, that someone who is close to you, maybe in your family, or someone who works with you, and it turns out the whole time they've been working with the enemy, or that they have different views and you just never saw it coming. This creates this sort of sense of fear that, am I aware of what people around me are thinking? The Soviets had lots of spies in the United States, and so I think they would have tested any drug they thought would have worked. Things were different back then.
Like I said before, the President of the United States was continually allowing this to happen. It's a little bit like a giant version of the Stanford prison experiment. That was a famous psychological experiment where people were given the roles of either prisoners or guards and were asked to roleplay as them for 2 weeks. But after just 6 days, because they were allowed to, the guards had become unbelievably cruel and sadistic, and the prisoners had become hopeless and abused. So the experiment was cut short. When people are allowed or even encouraged to act in unethical ways, they often will do it, putting aside their own internal values because the president said so. Ironically, Stanford would go on to become one of the main institutions for MKUltra. Anyways, I think that pretty much answers our third question, but I think the most interesting question of all is the fourth. And John would definitely know the answer to this. Is this still happening at all in any form today?
There was a lot of reforms of the intelligence community of the FBI and CIA in the 70s. There was the Church Commission in the Senate and the Pike Commission in the House, and they looked at FBI. CIA had been involved in MKUltra and a number of other efforts to kill Castro and stuff, and so this was a large congressional investigation to look at these things. And what came out of those investigations was a series of reforms that sort of changed the way intelligence works. It made it clearly under law, clearly under congressional oversight. Our job is to follow the law as written. We look back and think it's a little bit crazy and a little bit unethical, but we don't blackmail people. We don't induce them. We don't use drugs or any of these kind of things. And frankly, for practical purposes, you want people to be motivated to help you.
But there are still some people who believe there's remnants of MKUltra going on today.
If you were in a gifted and talented program as a child, sometimes called the GATE program, GT, TAG, a lot of different names, you probably have a very hard time remembering exactly what happened in that program. Some people don't even remember being in the program at all until they are shown images of weird headphones and flashcards that they used to test us. This is purely speculative, but Project Talent may have been used as a sort of feeder program to find kids who would have been very useful in intelligence and defense roles within the government.
The people who wrote the act in Congress may have thought that by finding more gifted and talented kids, they would move into academia, science, and hopefully to them maybe into the military or intelligence services. But it's hard for me to imagine there's a direct connection. But I don't know.
So it seems like the evils of MKUltra are over. The CIA has matured and works in a much more efficient and ethical way now.
The thing that sells the United States the best is the United States, not some drug, not some trick. People work for the United States because they think we're something special.
By the way, if you like what John has to say, he actually has a podcast called
Mission Implausible,
where he reacts to conspiracy theories and says what's true and what's not.
Yeah, it's good fun.
With that being said, this is always something America will have in its history, a conspiracy that's actually true. The evidence, though, will forever stay in this folder, locked away at the National Archives, with American officials hoping we will all one day forget about it. I, though, will absolutely be tuning into season 5 of Stranger Things. I mean, that show is a banger, bro. Oh my gosh.